So how you're feeling after that of those talks? Good? Yeah? They were excellent. I should start by saying thank you. Really, really nice. It's such a great variety, and I always love a personal touch as well. Okay, so let's see. Who is the first person to ask a question? Live from the audience. Yeah, let's start with you over here. Actually, I'm gonna have to steal. There you go.
Sorry, who was that?
This lady over here at the front.
Hello. First of all, 3 brilliant talks, thank you. So Matt, you called empathy our superpower. How do you keep that alive at somewhere as vast and as complex as GSK?
Oh gosh, I wasn't worried about doing the talk. I was worried about this bit. I don't know. You just how do you keep empathy alive in a company as big as GSK? I think from a personal perspective, it's communication. It's just talking to people. It's something that I try to do in my role. I think my role as a designer is so much more than just creating visual stuff. It's about talking to people, engineers, the people who are just generally involved in the product team, or even just communicating across different teams. We've got loads of people here from different teams at GSK that I don't work with on a day-to-day basis, but we're all kind of in it together. So yeah, just communication.
I'd love to hear as well from you. I think your talk is sort of related a little bit to empathy in a way, and obviously Tesco is another quite large organisation. What's your take on this?
I mean, I think it's about curiosity, and I think also it's about getting out of your silo. We all tend to get into our little bubble. As I start to work more across the organisation with different teams, start to see their points of view, you just open up. Yeah, communication, curiosity, just staying in touch and not working alone.
Absolutely, let you in here as well, because it's not just designers who can have empathy.
Developers are people too, yes.
Yeah, developers are people too, and they can also have empathy. So how do you...
I'm not a purebred developer either, so I'm a bit of a hybrid. Yeah, I would agree, right? I think there's obviously a lot of design and tech complexity that goes into a design system, but as others have said before, it's a lot of it is just human relationships. It's more of a people thing. And just like if you were a product designer, you've got to try and empathize with your users and understand them and design for them. Well, kind of other product designers and developers are our users, right? So we need to engage with them, empathize, understand. So it's a huge part of what we do. And just as you both said for designers, I think the same is true for developers, right? We need to understand their pain points, where they're coming from, what they're working with. And as, well, mine's drawing a blank now, you mentioned product people, right? Yes. Equally relevant, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, what they said.
What they said, excellent. Of course you can.
Thank you. Also, the other thing is, without empathy, I don't think our design system would still be around today. We were heading down quite a dark path of, you will use the design system. And once we changed to, how can we help you? What problems have you got? How can we solve them for you? Things started looking a lot brighter.
I think that's really interesting. And as someone who's been working at different organizations around design system, I actually think that's a real change in mindset when people go from, this is something that we're doing and I need you to use it, which might be the case, but actually how is that communicated? As in, we are here to support and kind of, it's an important part of the ecosystem of what's happening. Of course you can.
Just really... just to expand on that. No, so I was on a call today with a design. No, actually, it wasn't a designer from an agency. It was an account manager from an agency, and they wanted to know how to do something with our design system. And so, to your point, I tried my best to help them understand what was possible, and we looked for solutions together. And they listened to what I had to say, and then they went to their designer, and the designer actually ended up coming up with a better solution than I'd even suggested. So I think it works. It works.
Excellent. I don't know what that says about you, Matt, but you know, it was inspiring the way that you said that. Inspiring. I think inspiring is good. We have a very eager person to talk, ask a question. I'd love to hear that.
All right, so I guess my background is more on the hardware side of things. And I guess the question, I'm kind of curious about like how digital side of things actually manage this design system, because how let me think of the easy way to say, so let's say car design, we always have a design director that says everything, you do everything. Whatever he says, you actually go and execute. So I don't know on the digital side, how is actually that being managed? Like, for example, the theme or the detailed execution. I mean, because pages get separated in many different divisions and everybody wants a piece of it. So I don't know how is that done?
So are you asking who makes the final decision, or who kind of is in charge of setting direction?
I guess, yeah, like a governance.
Yeah, governance. Okay, perfect. Do we have anyone who want to take this on a little bit? Yeah, go for it.
Make a start. It's interesting what you mentioned about the design director sort of calling shots with cars, I think you said, right? So what I've observed in a lot of design, or sort of, I should say, digital product teams over the years is this kind of one-way flow, right? The designer designs a thing, it gets reviewed, iterated, blah, 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 and eventually gets handed over to developers. And at that point, it's considered untouchable, right? The design is signed off. You must build it exactly so. And I actually think that's terrible because as a developer, I can empathize that there's always edge cases. You build the thing and you're like, oh, but what about this? What about that? Did you mean this? Did you mean that? And if you don't feel empowered to go back and challenge and have a conversation, you'll struggle and get frustrated, or you'll end up just kind of muddling through and making a thing which is maybe not true to the original intent that was in the designer's mind. So absolutely, you need the designer sort of experience and the developer experience. But like what we try and do in our team or our work is we consider it a dialogue. It's a two-way thing, right? When we start a component, yes, the designer's made a draft, but it's a draft, right? Like we review it collectively. We all try to poke holes in it. As developers, we're thinking about things we might need to worry about that they hadn't considered. And then we iterate together until we get something we all agree on, and that's what we then build. And sometimes that will mean that the designers have to go back and make some changes on their end as well. And I wish more teams did that. I think it's my spicy hot take, but I think that's a good way of doing it. I don't know if.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. But I got the sense that you were also kind of asking about hippos. Is it a hippo? The hippo? Yeah. People who come in and make an executive decision. I think that doesn't really happen anymore. I mean, sometimes it does, I think, but based on research and best practice, you've got a lot of evidence to be able to have those conversations and have quite constructive conversations about them. So, of course, there's always going to be that element that you're going to have to deal with in your work, but it's quite systematic and proven and all these things, and it's very accessibility in there, and everyone says yes. So yeah. Did you have a follow-up? I saw you going.
I guess the thing about it is that on the hardware side is like, yes, we have this feedback loop that we call it, is that, okay, the engineers give feedback, okay, what you can do, what you cannot do. And usually it's like 6-7 rounds in the process. But I guess it's like, even for the designers itself, where like we have like say 500 designs like around the world, and then it's like, it never really, and always there will be someone trying to break the rules amongst designers. So,
I don't think that's a bad thing, right?
Yeah. In a way, yes.
Don't. I think that's where creativity starts to happen. It's just, what do you let go and what do you embrace?
Usually, I guess that's where it's getting, because usually it would be the design director. I don't know. Well, every design director, different styles. Some are more liberal, more like group decision things. Some are like absolute monarchy kind of style. So it's kind of hard to say. But
if I may just add something, I think maybe one crucial difference that we've sort of been ignoring is, and I'm making assumptions here because I've not really worked in hardware, but although my wife is a civil engineer, so I kind of hear a little bit about building physical things. Digital stuff is very malleable, right? If we get it wrong or we change our mind, we deploy an update, it's done. If you've built a physical car and shipped it, you can't then go to the customer and go, oh, I just want to tweak this one thing, right? You've got to get it right first time or else, right? So I guess that must change the dynamic. But I don't speculate beyond that.
Yeah, I would say a very similar thing. So my partner, she works for GSK and she's in manufacturing, and they cannot go outside of those guidelines and those standards that they have, because they are making medicines for people. Whereas we as designers have that kind of privilege, as it is, for, you know, to have that flexibility within what we do. And it's the 80-20 rule that I was talking about earlier. You know, you have those guidelines and those standards in place so that things remain as consistent as possible. But every day we get requests from various teams around the business, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we change this? Can we change that? And it falls on us as members of the design system team to decide whether that actually is applicable or not. And so, but we've got that ability to do that within design, which maybe you don't have so much in hardware, maybe.
Before we let this in, I just want to make a quick, for those who don't know, Hippo is the highest paid person's opinion, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And it does happen, I'm sure you've all been there. Someone comes in, so this looks lovely, but what about if we do this? And then they bugger off again.
It's also called
I was about to say, it's also called seagulling. That's when you fly in, dump your opinion on stuff and fly off again. And it happens. And I love where you're working, Diane, where you say it doesn't happen anymore. I visit many different organizations, and I can definitely tell you that I might have seen some signs of it. So yeah, but it's definitely a thing.
John doesn't do that.
I think you work in a lovely place. That's what it is. So credit to your team and organization on that. Yes, absolutely. Please, next question.
So if we go back to empathizing, and if you want to have a brilliant working relationship, how many engineers are actually part of the user research and listen and empathize with the user? That is also a key, because the relationship needs to build from much earlier, and not like the so-called agile is part waterfall, part agile.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So before I get these guys in, how many engineers, can we get the engineers' hands back up again? How many of you engineers keep your, oh, she already took her down, she hasn't even, have you ever participated, if you haven't participated in a user testing experience interviewing that early stages, please take your hand down, see how many who's remaining, anybody has. This guy's taking a photo. I think he's trying to sneak in an opinion that doesn't. But yes, almost got me there. One person. So now with that in mind, well done you. Let's bring in the what do we do? How do we get that more to happen, or is it not? Is it happening for you guys? What's the take here?
So we don't really user test design components, and the reason for that is you cannot just test a button on its own. However, our engineers are very, very close to our users. We've got a support channel where all of our team answer all of the problems or challenges that come from the design or engineering community. So when we are discussing challenges, solutions, modifications, etc., to components, the engineers have got very good insight firsthand to what the problems are and how frustrated those designers can be. So yeah, I mean, that's how we do it. That's how we bring our engineers closer. But in terms of the product teams, I would imagine that probably not that many of them attend user testing.
Yeah, that was I'm not sure that was a question, Jerry, was it? It was more of a kind of a statement. And no, it's a challenging one, because I think, yeah, we don't. I think in general, our engineer, because of the way we work at GSK, our engineers are not generally involved in user research. And yeah, I think it's something we could get better at for sure. And maybe that's part of the whole kind of communication side of things. Like, I think as designers, we're very close to product, but maybe, and this is maybe a GSK specific thing, we're maybe not so close to the engineering side of things. So yeah, I think there's a challenge there to actually think about how we communicate not only to product, to the stakeholders, but also to the engineers when we're talking about research that we're doing.
I can't also help thinking there's a little bit of a difference between design system and maybe more kind of traditional UX product design. Because what I've seen when we work with people and we're kind of trying to come up with ideas for the product, we are quite keen on having engineers part of the early conversations. And that could be like, why are we even here? What is it that we're trying to solve? And I think getting engineers part of that conversation is, and I am very happy to be corrected, I think it's slightly different than maybe the early stage of a design system, because those two things can come, design system can come from a different place. I've worked with organizations where it's actually engineering who are driving the design system, and they've been struggling getting designers on board. Yes, I said that, and that has happened. And there have been situations where maybe even, not as many that I've seen, but I have seen where product might have been the driver. So I think it's sort of UX, I don't really know how to separate them, but I'm going to call it product design versus design system. I think in product design, it is absolutely imperative to have engineers part of the early conversations. And there's a very simple way of doing that, and that's actually just invite them. And I think sometimes people just forget that the simplest thing is just to say, can you just join us? And then when they say no, or they ask why, you give them an explanation why you need that. And if that person then says no, you ask the next one. So, you know, it's a slightly different. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think it's a slightly different.
Design system, you're not going to test the component, right? You're not testing component, but when you complete a product, it is a process. So
absolutely,
you can't discount that.
Absolutely,
so from
no.
onset, from day one, engineering, and a beautiful idea is built on each other. We have to, like Matt said early, someone went away and have another conversation. It turns out better. So isn't that what it is, this relationship?
I mean, it's definitely, and I think as well, like I've seen enough of different organizations where they have different design, if we go back to design system, but they have different design systems started without teams knowing that is happening. And that could be engineers that started one thing and designers that started another thing, and they've actually haven't even communicated. So there's still some work to be done there, but absolutely. Go for it.
God, don't forget. I just forgot what I was going to say. All right, that was it. So our engineers, we do a lot of stuff in design that is a little bit outside of the general delivery of components for engineers. And a lot of that is research with our users, talking to our users, retros, you name it. We're trying to get to the bottom of what's going on. And typically that type of work and the people kind of user side of work has been separated from the actual delivery of components that we're doing with our engineers. So what we are doing now is we're going to be sharing the work that we're doing beyond component delivery with our engineering and product team. I mean, saying that out loud seems a bit mad that we're not doing it already, but yeah, it is. I think that divide naturally, for some reason, is there, and you've got to work to break that down.
Did I see an arm over? Yeah, there we go. And we got another one over there. So let's do this and then the lady over here. Go for it.
Hi, it's me, Pavel. I'm a product designer. So I'm having a question. If you could rebuild the design system today, knowing everything now, so what would you do differently?
The big questions.
Not a thing. Our one is perfect. Kidding. I'll walk right to that. I mean, we're actually halfway through building our design system, so we're, although 2 years in. I think, I like to think we're kind of, our design system is trying to replace legacy stuff that's been around in our organization. So we're trying to learn from mistakes that were made in the past and do better. like anything, it's not going to be perfect, and it's already maybe showing flaws, but it's not. Yeah, I'm struggling here. I don't.
So you're building it at the moment.
Yeah, kind of. We're building it up while it's being
Right.
what we have is starting to be consumed. Yeah.
It's difficult to know what you'd be doing then.
It is. I think there are maybe around the governance and things. There are things I would have, if I could go back and start again, I would do differently. I think we didn't quite find the right way to involve more people like designers and some of the other sort of like product people earlier, and that's caused a bit of friction. I like to think we're doing better now. I'm looking at my colleague over there, but you know, with the benefit of hindsight, I think there's stuff we could have done better earlier on. So maybe that type of thing. So again, it's more about the, I suppose, the people, the governance, the process. That's the harder stuff than the mechanics of actually cranking out, you know, buttons or tokens or whatever.
I would say the same. Like I've seen that as well, and I think documentation and governance and just kind of inviting the right people from the beginning.
You know, I'd also say that all of the mistakes we made were really valuable. We learned so much from all of those. So I probably wouldn't want to change some of those because we really were just doing the best that we could at the time with what we knew. Remember that the Tesco design system is about 10 years old. What I would change is involving product owners a lot earlier. Product owners tend to be forgotten in design systems a little bit. Would definitely involve them a lot earlier and sooner. Well, earlier, sooner, more, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it at the beginning as well about, I really think it's the kind of the trinity of the product, engineering and design. I love you just struggling over the microphone over here. That's all right. It's okay. You are now the allocated microphone holder. And I do think that product is something that we do need, and I would probably encourage every single organization that I have ever worked with and anyone that I will work with, get product people included early. And I'm going to say that for those product people here to just kind of really rub their shoulders a little bit extra, they have so much power. They hold so much power, and you don't realize that until you need them to implement something, because they got a plan, they got a roadmap, they got deadlines. And when you come and say, all right, can we look at that? We look at that and goes like, where was that 3 months ago when I put this together? If he wasn't there, it's not happening. So you need to get them on board early. That will be my one thing to take away. And from my side, sorry, I'm going to answer one more thing I would say is metrics. What I realized many times is that there's stuff that I didn't even think about that we could measure until it's too late, because we don't have the numbers from the beginning, and we didn't know when we started that those numbers would be really good numbers to have. So kind of just like, that's hindsight, obviously. So just kind of knowing what those metrics that you don't think of immediately could be really useful.
Measure everything.
Measure everything. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other questions? We had the lady here first. Okay, you go first. And we have to take this lady here because she's been waiting. Go for it.
Hi. Yeah, my question was about metrics as well.
What is segue?
For Diane, because you showed some metrics. So I was wondering, how do you track those metrics, and how do you show or demonstrate to the business the return of investment on the value or the value of the design system? Or
Yeah, so this is a tricky one because, look, we work in a very large organization, so we have a lot of numbers. We have big numbers. And we kind of have to trust the analytics that we're given. So we are trusting Figma to tell us that that is the right amount of assertions, etc. We did a very complex calculation that sort of took how long it takes for a designer to create a component, how much it takes a designer to create the same thing if they weren't creating components, and if it took a product designer, how long it took them if they decided to make a component that just catered to their needs. And we did this calculation, and we did it across all the components, and we worked out that the amount of time that we're actually saving people is we're talking about this today. It's almost 2 days a week of all the designers. Now, it sounds, I mean, bearing in mind there's 170 designers in just our department, and then we have 260 designers using across the organization. It kind of seems a little bit crazy, those numbers, but we're working on the fact that we've been given them. So we then take those, we talk about the salary saving that we're saving, or the amount of people they would have to hire in order to fulfill those hours, and we take that back to the business with a lot of caveats, basically. I did it again, I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. Anyone else got anything to add on metrics? I know this is always a really hot topic. Everybody always want to understand business only care about return on investment. It's easy to tell someone is going to be consistent, it's going to be beautiful, it's going to be better, but where show me the money? That's always the hard part.
I mean, I would definitely second get metrics as soon as you can. And again, maybe with benefit findouts, I mean, we should have done a bit sooner, but it's tricky, right, to kind of get those measurements. And I'd actually be really interested to know how you compared building your own component versus using one from the design system.
We just did interviews.
Right. Well, I was going to...
Yeah, we literally interviewed the designers and said, well, how long would it take you? In some cases, we did measure them doing it. We sat and watched them do it. Yeah.
Because what we've started doing right now for our one is we've sent out a survey to all the designers, developers, and product people. And one of the questions in there is how many hours per week do you think the design system is saving you? Because it's still ongoing, like we haven't got all the results yet, but my hope is we'll get whatever people think it is, and then we can, average those numbers, and we've, by other means, we can estimate how many designers or developers we have. And so, multiply one with the other, you end up with amount of hours or dollars or whatever saved. So we're going to try and do something like that. But again, there's caveats, right? It's a really hard thing to measure accurately, I think.
And I think what's quite interesting, because the numbers themselves seem crazy, is even if the numbers aren't 100% accurate, if you're measuring them over time, the more important thing is the percentage of increase year on year. So that's why I specifically called out that 33%, because that's what we're tracking. That's the important thing. It's showing more adoption. It's showing that things are growing. So yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
The only thing I would add to that is that if you don't have metrics on your design systems, don't worry, because it is really hard. And for example, our Omni design system it's a fairly new design system, and we don't have a great deal of visibility over how it's being consumed by people because of the way that we work as a business. So we know that metrics are important, but if you don't have metrics, don't worry. As long as you know that you need to and look for ways to do it, I think that's also, you're on the right path. We're on that path as well, so.
Excellent, thank you. We have a lady, have you asked your question? Let's go for it.
Hi.
Hello.
So this is of the conversation of AI. I found that AI can be quite democratic in that it can make non-specialists all of a sudden quite knowledgeable about something. So I'm not sure how I sort of managed it so well, so perhaps that's why I'm asking you. How do you manage someone who is completely inexperienced in something, say design, all of a sudden kind of saying, oh, but design standards say we should do this, or perhaps from an engineering perspective, oh, can't you just use Python or something? Like how do you work with people when they use AI without the proper knowledge behind them and they're convinced that it's a good solution? So how do you work with these people?
This is a great question. I'm hearing a little bit, Matt, what you were talking about, that quote where it says like everyone will be at a kind of junior level forever and ever. Exactly. So therefore, I feel like I'm going to point at you to start with.
Oh gosh.
You're welcome. Great question.
I can honestly say I don't think I've I don't feel like I've been in that situation yet with people, but I can flip it on its head and say, I think I've been in that situation where using AI has made me feel more knowledgeable about things than I actually have experience of. And I've had to kind of stop myself and think, should I actually be communicating this? Because I can't really back it up. You know, I'm kind of relying on what AI is telling me, but do I really understand what it's telling me? Yeah, so I know that doesn't really answer your question, but I'm putting those checks and balances into what I do to make sure that I'm not communicating things that I don't fully understand with other people. I don't know if either of you have anything to... That's a great question.
Yeah, it is a good question, but I also wonder if it's not necessarily AI being the problem here. I would probably say that this person is, or people like this, are just someone that you have to deal with as like a tricky stakeholder or any other person that is opinionated about something that you need to educate them on. And what I would do in those situations is fall back on best practice, the evidence, the reasons why you can't just change it to a hyphen, the impact that's going to have. I think when you start talking about the impact that those decisions are going to have on the greater whole, you can start having conversations with that person around that.
So we're running towards the end, but we're going to get one more question in. I've got loads of questions that we didn't get answered, but that's because I didn't expect the bravery. This gentleman, you've been very patient with us, so let's go with you. I saw you over there back. We give you one as well, and then that.
Thank you so much.
Go for it, please.
Thank you so much. So my name is Max, and my question is mostly for James, even though I would love to hear more answers. So I was really excited to hear that you try to work on some sort of standard for the semantic tokens, for the design tokens, because it's been, I think, a very ongoing problem that we know we can use this, but there was nothing to back this up. And I'm really excited to hear that something might emerge. However, I know two things, like two big problems, which belong to this space, and I'm keen to know how you try to address them. One is, what are the things we actually need to tokenize? So most people, when they do presentations, they talk about colors, obviously, because colors are the easiest. But there are shadows, radiuses, the spacing is the same spacing like for grids and for typography and for forms. Is it the same spacing with different spacing? Do I have to tokenize shadows, animations? So question number one is, what do we actually have to tokenize? And another one is the more complex relationships between different tokens. You've mentioned contrast between A and B, and that's amazing already. But you know, most of the components in light-dark theme world need to be surface-aware, context-aware. The same button may transition from surface to surface and needs to change its color seamlessly without the component actually undergoing a single diff. And there can be more complex interactions, like how flexible your standard can potentially be in expressing those. And I'm sorry if it's long. It has to be a long question.
Before you get started, this is a brilliant conversation for the pub and the network later. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to give a very quick, high-level answer, and then we're going to deep dive into that.
I think that's a good idea because, yeah, I could totally nerd out about this for hours.
Otherwise, I can see the two of you going on. I love that.
I think maybe if I just focus on your first one for now, and perhaps we could catch up about the other bit later. But I don't know if you're familiar with the DTCG format, but it has this concept of types. So it's similar to like strongly typed programming languages. And I remember in the early days, there was a lot of debate about what the type should be. So we landed on, to give an example, we have something called dimension, which is an amount of distance effectively, right? So currently it supports pixels or rems as the unit, but there's a provision that, that could be extended in the future. And of course, those things could be used all over the place in UUI, right? They might be used for font sizes, line heights, padding values, gaps, widths and heights of elements, etc., right? And there was a lot of debate about, well, should we have one type that does them all, or do we need different types for, space versus font size versus whatever? We landed on just one for all because I suppose the problem we're trying to solve really is interoperability between tools. And if you're trying to take a platform agnostic value and then translate it into something for, let's say, iOS or CSS or for the web or whatever, that's going to be the same regardless, right? You're converting, for example, pixels to DPs for Android or something. It doesn't matter where in the UI those things are being applied. But there was, I think, if memory serves, a proposal which is still kind of dangling and could maybe work its way into a future iteration of having some extra parameter where you can indicate the intended purpose. And actually Figma variables have something a bit like this, right? There's in the properties, you can say, you know, this variable is for spacing or font sizes or whatever. So like a standardized version of that, basically. So they're kind of similar but different concepts. I think that's kind of where we landed. Maybe I'll just stop there because I was going for ages, but definitely happy to, you know, chat more about this. I don't know if that helps.
This is a brilliant future conversation. Good question. I feel like you could do a talk about that by yourself, so that's amazing. Unfortunately, that is what we have time for the Q&A. Don't move, I'm not done yet. Thank you so much for joining me. Big round of applause to our speakers.